From the land of conjurers flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird, this is the Witching Hours, and we are ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to this program. I am John of the Frost, and joining me, as always, is the medium Jenny Lee. How are you doing, Jenny?
A little bit tired today, but
a little bit tired.
We're gonna be all right.
Yeah, we're getting there. Well, it probably doesn't help. We loaded up on carbs with spaghetti for dinner tonight, so get that nice little that little nap you need to take after that. But we're going to get through tonight because we got a really interesting conversation ahead of us tonight. I do want to say before we get started, thank you first off to Hoaxers, 15 months in the reset. Yeah. We appreciate it. We have some new merch available. So if you go over to the link in chat, there's a whole bunch of new merch that's been put up over there. Some want to get weird merch and some loyal to the foil merch. Also over there, we got new t-shirts, mugs, hats, all kinds of things over there. So, we should be able to have plenty of stuff over there. If you're interested in buying something, it's not the holiday season anymore. Usually I can, usually I do it before Christmas. So I'm like, hey. But if you're interested, if you want something, go over there, check it out. Some cool stuff. And you can see, I don't know if anybody else wants to get weird. So there we go. You ready to get in? Anything else you wanted to talk about before we get started tonight, Jenny? No. Okay. Do you want to get weird?
Hucksters was saying that the audio was sounding funny, but it sounded okay to me.
Okay.
Yes. That's why I'm a little bit discombobulated, because I was listening to the double, you, and then I was listening to you again. So I could hear if it was okay. Yeah.
Well, the Twitch bit rate sometimes. I haven't figured that problem out completely because I'm always in the red now. I never used to be in the red. Now we just record always in the red. It's just always in the red. So, the more I make things better, the worse they get. So off we go. Let's go ahead and get into the news.
All right.
All right. So the first article I brought up today was, why some physicists think we are living inside a black hole. In an attempt to reconcile some of the paradoxes discovered when studying black holes, physicists have proposed stranger hypotheses still, with one suggesting that that imply we live in a holographic universe. Further than that, some have suggested it could imply that our universe is within a black hole of a larger universe.
Okay.
So basically this article goes on to describe the fact that we could be living inside a black hole, that everything that we see in our universe is actually just inside of this black hole that's inside of a larger universe.
Makes my brain hurt.
It gets, well, if I really wanted to, I could go through this and it would probably make it hurt a little bit more. But nevertheless, it goes into some of the discoveries made by Stephen Hawking, and going into the Hawking radiation. Hawking then pointed to a paradox. If a black hole can evaporate, a portion of the information it contains is lost forever, which was called the information paradox. And one of the ways that they've come to explain this is that we might be living inside a black hole. So for one thing, for the model to work, the universe's Hubble radius, the radius of our observable universe, must be the same as the Schwarzschild radius, or the size of the black hole that would be created if all the matter within it was condensed to a single point. And these two figures, in fact, are surprisingly close, though it could just be a cosmic coincidence. However, I think I've heard you say multiple times, Jenny, that there are no coincidences. So in this case, we would be living inside a black hole if there are no coincidences. So we'll see what happens with that. And this one is specifically for you, Jenny. Near flawless quantum teleportation demonstrated in groundbreaking experiment.
Good Lord, it's about damn time. What? I've been waiting for this my whole life.
Yeah. Do you want to go to I don't know, whisked away from one coast to the next in a single day or wherever you want to go, and off you go.
What the hell? Why is it taking so long?
Well, they're working on it. Well, I don't know how much longer it'll take, but
why did they teleport though?
Well, beat me up, Scotty. In a study that seems straight out of Star Trek, an international team of researchers has achieved a remarkable feat in the realm of quantum teleportation. They have successfully conducted near-perfect quantum teleportation despite the presence of noise that typically disrupts the transfer of quantum states. So they're doing this all at the smallest level. At the quantum level they can.
Never mind. We won't ever see this.
They're able to teleport qubits that requires quantum resources such as entanglement between additional pairs of qubits. The work is based on an idea of distributing entanglement prior to running the teleportation protocol beyond the used qubits, exploiting the hybrid entanglement between different physical degrees of freedom, says study author Jyrki Pailo, a professor from the University of Turku in Finland. So they're working on it. They made some big breakthroughs, but I don't know if we're going to be being magically whisked away to
because I was like,
to
what
Berlin
did they teleport?
Or anything anytime
did
soon.
They teleport a rock, a plant, a cookie? No, it's quantum bits and pieces. All right, never mind.
No quick trips to Cairo just yet.
Dang.
And then the last story for this evening is I think we had Rob disappear. I'll have to see if
I'm here. I just my phone, I didn't want to interrupt the show. My phone's burning up.
I've
never used it. So I wish I could do this on my computer, but I'll try to. I don't know what to do. I don't know what the best, Well, I guess we could just try it on the phone. Like when you guys are ready for me, I'll turn my camera back on.
Okay, that sounds fine. We'll get it straightened out. All right. So for the last news story for tonight, it's been 2 years since the UK's poop-engulfed beaches became a national scandal. Now it's even worse. Yeah. It was late 2021 when James Richardson heard about England's poop problem. We'll have to talk to Michael Mannis about this, maybe. I don't know. I saw a tweet talking about the extent of the problem, and the numbers were enormous. I thought it couldn't be true that there was so much sewage being dumped, he says. I thought it's social media. Someone must be exaggerating, so he looked into it, and if it was true, it would be a scandal. His research tallied, he put out the research with a tweet. Raw sewage was being dumped into England's rivers and onto beaches at a truly astonishing rate. So-called storm overflows designed to flush overall full drains into rivers, seas, and even across beaches are supposed to be used in exceptional circumstances, as the name suggests. But in 2021, the year Richardson saw the data, they disgorged their contents across the country for a total of 2.7 million hours, equivalent to over 300 years. Over the past few years, members of the British public have seen beaches closed for swimming on peak summer holiday weekends, dead fish floating in busy rivers, and found themselves surfing affluent engorged waves. First, it was the smell, says Giles Bristow, who once found himself in the middle of a sewage slick when surfing in Stanton and Devon.
Yuck.
Then we saw toilet paper and sanitary products in the water. That was a real moment of, oh God. Over the past few years, the UK's poopy beaches problem has been sparking increasing anger from citizens around the country. The cancellation of an annual swimming race in the Thames right before the current bank holiday weekend has also caused concern. The race, which has been held since the 1890s, was due to be held in July, but was called off because of fears of sewage in the water.
Oh, man.
2022's August bank holiday, a weekend when Brits flocked to the beach, saw the closure of a beach in Brighton as a popular seaside escape for Londoners. Brighton seems to be deluged over and over again. Hugo Tagholm, the ex-CEO of campaign group Surfers Against Sewage. This weekend is another bank holiday, but while Brighton beaches are safe to swim at, many others around the UK are not, according to Surfers Against Sewage live tracker. 12 out of 14 storm overflows on the Isle of Wight, a popular retreat off the southern coast, are currently emitting sewage.
So I have an interesting art history story that goes along with this.
Okay.
Many of the most famous paintings of bathers and people picnicking on the bank of a river, these French paintings, it's now known, which I'm sure it was then, but nobody cared, that just off a little ways from where those people are swimming for a long, long time, that's where the sewage came into the river. So this is nothing new.
Where was this at?
I was in France, but what Frost is talking about is in England.
I was going to say it makes you have a little bit more makes me have a little bit more appreciation for some of the beaches we have here, because I've never experienced that here at any beach. I've been all up and down the East Coast, and I've never seen. I mean, I've seen some pretty disgusting stuff, but not sewage.
not sewage. I agree.
Yeah.
So, the annual event duration monitoring of storm overflows in England, released in March, said sewage spills had increased in 2023 by 54%. The average number of yearly spills per overflow had increased from 23 to 33, and the total spills went from 301,000 to 464,000. Worse still, sewage spilled into the UK waters for double the amount of time in 2023 than they did in 2022, a whopping 3.6 million hours, or the equivalent of over 400 years.
What is going on over there?
In 2021, Thames Water was fined £4 million for a 2016 incident in which it discharged an estimated 500,000 liters of raw sewage into streams near Richardson's home, killing around 3,000 fish. So,
man, that's terrible.
Yeah,
get it together, UK.
The beach is not looking too hot as the summer, comes rolling around here. And that was the news. Go ahead.
You can say, UK, you have to get your shit together.
There we go. All right. So first thing we're going to do today is we have Alyson coming on to talk about the moon phases again.
Yes. But she couldn't join us live today, so she made a video for us.
Yeah. So we're going to check that out and see what we have going on there.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on the Witching Hours podcast. I'm really excited to talk to everybody about the moon for May, because I think we can all take a deep breath and finally exhale and let go and kind of let the dust settle from the chaos that was the month of April. We had a solar eclipse in April, we had Mercury retrograde, we had the Uranus and Jupiter conjunction, and May is a little bit more tame. And with this Taurus energy, the sun is starting off the month in Taurus. This is helping us come back down to the ground, get our feet stable in our footing, in our foundation. We're able to kind of come back to ourselves and find some sort of grounded and centeredness. However, on May 2nd, Pluto went retrograde, and Pluto has made a lot of impact on this year because it just recently moved into Aquarius back in February, I think it was. And Pluto is a planet of transformation. So normally it is going to be kind of shaking things up, but because it's such a slow moving planet and an outer planet, it takes a long time for these things to have an impact in your life. They're like the gradual transformations that you make, the longer life-changing shifts that you make in your life. So while this can instigate some transformation, I think it's going to be more about what I've been saying about Taurus energy, this pause, this slow moving energy, this groundedness. Because when a planet goes retrograde, it gives us this opportunity to relearn, revisit, re-examine, everything. And we kind of need to at this moment. It's this pause and this reflection that what the heck just hit us in the month of April. I also think this is a good time to like revisit and the how and why and the what is shifting and changing for you, and what might be preventing your transformation. So if you have been like integrating and like moving forward and you feel like you're on your way and things all of a sudden kind of halt in their tracks this month, it's probably because Pluto is retrograde. So you're meant to kind of like retrace your steps and maybe work a little bit on your plan so that you're ready when things start moving again. So Pluto will go direct at the beginning of October of this year, where the sun is still like leading everything. So the sun is still in Taurus, which brings us this grounded stability, centeredness. And you all probably felt that on Tuesday because we had our new moon in Taurus on Tuesday. So a Taurus new moon, it's a really good idea to set intentions around your foundation, trying to create more stability in your life. So this is setting intentions around daily routines, finances, career, physical fitness, or even like beautifying your space, like making, like redecorating or moving furniture. So this is also a time to like get outside and get your feet on the ground and enjoy the simple pleasures of life. Because Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's all about that pleasure, like what makes you feel good, what do things that make you feel good. And we're going to be doing a lot of that at the end of this month too, when we shift into Gemini. But for right now, we've got slow moving Taurus energy. And if you haven't set your new moon intentions yet, like go ahead and still do it. Do it right now. Do it tonight. Even though we're not in Taurus, we're in Gemini right now. The moon slowly changes. So you can take, and with this Taurus energy, this is even more slow moving. So you can just take one step at a time, get your intentions set in writing, start making changes in your life tomorrow. Like you can just take one step at a time, especially with Taurus energy. The following week, May 13th through the 19th, we have Mercury moving into Taurus. And Mercury, thank goodness, is not retrograde anymore, is the planet of communication. So this helps you get really grounded and centered and like to the core of what you want to say. So Mercury in Taurus, I think, is going to be really significant because at the end of the month, we're going to be shifting into that a lot of Gemini energy. And Gemini is the sign of expression and communication. Mercury in Taurus helps you get to the core, the meat of like what it is that you're trying to say and what it is that you're trying to like put out into the world. So again, that like coming back to the core, coming back to your foundation and speaking from a stable platform. Then the week of the 20th, a lot is happening the week of the 20th. The sun is moving into Gemini, like I've been talking about this whole video. Venus moves into Gemini and Jupiter moves into Gemini and they're just happening right after the other. Mercury, the sun and Venus always kind of shift really closely together. They're kind of partners in crime throughout the universe. But the big shift is going to be the Jupiter and Gemini, because last month we had the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction, and that was when they were both in Taurus. So this means that with Jupiter shifting into Gemini, it's moving further away from Uranus. So we're not feeling that Uranian pull anymore, which is liberation and freedom. And when Uranus plays out in our lives, it tends to be a little bit volatile because it's like the shift that needs to change or the shift that needs to move because it needs to, like there needs to be this evolution happening because Uranus is the planet of revolution. So Jupiter moving a little bit further away from that is bringing in completely different energy. Like this isn't the grounded, stable, like we want everybody to hold hands and have a stable foundation. Jupiter moving into Gemini kind of reminds us that like, hey, we can all hold hands and we're all one and we all came from the same thing, but we're also meant to express our differences here And Gemini is the sign of expression, but it's specifically the sign of expressing duality. So this is like, hey, you can have your voice and I can have my voice. Let's find some mutual ground there. So it's just very different energy from shifting from Taurus to Gemini. And I think we'll really start to feel that on the 25th of May. And before I move on to the next week, we have our full moon in Sagittarius on the 23rd. Don't worry, Sagittarius people, I did not forget about your big, bright full moon. We have a lot of Sagittarius people in our community, and that is because Sagittarius is the truth seeker. They are on this never-ending quest for knowledge and wisdom, and they are the teachers and they are the truth seekers. And that's what we're celebrating on this full moon. Along with all of this Gemini energy, this feels like a very playful full moon because Gemini likes to play and Sagittarius likes to party. So we're having this big, bright full moon with all of this Gemini energy. And I know we've got a lot of Gemini people out here too. So it's no wonder we have all met up with each other because we like to play and we like to have fun. But we also like to research and we also like to learn. So that's kind of the energy of the middle of the week there of May 23rd. And then, I mean, that closes out the month. We're really going to start to feel this Gemini energy once we move into June. Mercury finally goes into Gemini June 3rd. And then we have our Gemini new moon June 6th. So we're starting off this month with Taurus energy, gives us this opportunity to get grounded and centered. And then hopefully by the end of the month, you're ready to have fun in the sun and enjoy your summer, get ready for summer, plan your vacations, plan your days off, and allow yourself to play and have fun and remind yourself that you can be both of those things. You can be an adult and you can play, you can work and you can play and you can have that balance. You can be both of those things because that's what Gemini teaches us, where they're the twins. They're identical, but they're also opposite. So I hope you're able to find some time to play and have fun. If not this month, into June and the rest of Gemini season. And thank you so much for having me. And that is the moon for May.
All right. So we got a really good update there. A lot of stuff that's going to be going on for the moon here and heading into my territory. Heading into
Gemini energy. Look out,
heading into the Gemini energy. Let's go. Let's go with that. Yeah, I'm ready for it. So yeah, we got my day's coming up right around the corner here. Yeah. So I think we're going to do a stream maybe for that on like the 2nd or whatever that Monday is. We'll do a little birthday hangout. So
birthday stream. Now we are ready.
Now we are ready. So, Rob Kalil, host of the Typical Skeptic podcast. Everyone saw that when Medium Ginny Lee went over there in Pittsburgh, does his podcast in Pittsburgh, PA. Robert is a popular podcaster on YouTube, Rumble, and other platforms. The Typical Skeptic podcast is a non-biased exploration of ufology, secret space, and hidden history, hosted by Robert Kalil of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Has extensive experience looking into the paranormal, UFO phenomena, hidden history, and the nature of reality. He also does research about conspiracy topics such as uncovering the Cabal and the Illuminati. And we got the links for Rob up there in chat, so go check him out. Rob, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to meet you guys on this platform. I'm really honored to be.
I don't know why it was delaying. It's delaying like this.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what we can get figured out here. We'll see if maybe it can catch up. All right, Rob. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, we'll see if we need to fix anything, but we'll see what we can get through here. But I kind of wanted to start off with you and how you got started with your podcast. What made you decide to start podcasting, and how did you get that started?
Okay, so it's a long story. It's kind of a long story how I got started into podcasting. It was so I was always like yourself. I was a big fan of Art Bell growing up. Like we used to listen to Art Bell like religiously here, like when you could get him on the radio back in like 2001 Yeah, I mean, I know he was on since 1992, but like here in Pittsburgh, they really started playing him in like 98, 99, 2000, 2000. And I used to have a girlfriend. She was, I would take her home at night. So I'd be like driving home at like 12:30, 1 o'clock, right when Coast to Coast would come on. And I would always like love like listening to like, like everything that he would talk about, like all the like mysteries of the universe and like all, Bigfoot and UFOs and, it just all the paranormal stuff, the shadow people, it just fascinated me. And then like, so I kind of got obsessed with it. And then me and my friends, we started having like these things where we would like, there's like a Waffle House, obviously here in Pennsylvania. So, but it's like the Waffle House is like an hour from my house. So we would go on these like long burn runs, like back when we were like 21 years old. And we would listen to Art Bell, and then we would end up at the Waffle House and we'd be talking about the subjects that Art would talk about all night. We'd go outside, listen for a little bit, and we'd come back in, eat something or drink coffee or whatever. Or my friend would have a radio, like stuff like that. And then fast forward, like, like life happens and like, I kind of got away from it. And then in 2016, I had like a reawakening, which I would call it, because I feel like everybody's kind of going through an awakening right now. But mine was really hit in 2016 when I learned about the story of the Anunnaki. Like that was like big for me. I was like researching Alexander the Great because I was always into like Roman, Greek, Egyptian history. Like I always loved that kind of stuff. But then when I heard about the story of the Anunnaki, it kind of like blew me away. And I remember I emailed Matthew LaCroix that day, and he, he's like a big researcher now, and I ended up being able to have him on my show, which is amazing. But like,
nice.
This is 2016, and I had so many questions for him. I was like, so what is all this? And I didn't understand any of it. I didn't know any, and then from that point, I was kind of obsessed. And then fast forward to like 2020, when everything kind of went down with, I'll leave it unnamed. I think everybody knows what happened in 2020.
Yeah.
I was forced to be inside, and I was like, I was already putting out videos on what I was learning. And then I was just like, because once I learned about the story of the Anunnaki that in 2016, that got me back into Art Bell. I started listening to Art Bell again. I started getting back into UFOs. I started like getting back into the paranormal. So that Anunnaki thing was really a jump off point for me to like get back into everything that I had been listening to in Art Bell. And then 2020 came, and I was stuck in the house. So I started my podcast, and 4 years later, here I am, or 5 years later, I don't know if you want to call it 4 or 5 years later. And I never thought that I'd be getting into topics like the secret space program and conspiracies. It's kind of crazy to see how things evolve over the years. You know what I mean? From like what people were talking about then to what they're talking about now. But I think that's just the progression of knowledge. I think, like we're more in like an information era where like more of this stuff's obviously going to come out because like people have more access to it. More secrets are being revealed. There's more of an awakening. There's a lot more going on, it seems like.
And also like when people hear other people telling their stories, it makes them brave enough to tell their stories too.
I agree. I think so too. I think there's something to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
well, I have to say
2020 got everybody, didn't it?
Yeah.
Everybody started something new in 2020.
Yeah.
And I probably said this before, but I still really think it's true. And I'd say this quite often, which is the wonderful thing about that is that so many people started doing things that they had a passion for. And I really feel like people continue even now to are exploring their passions and their creativity, maybe even more than they were before that hit. Like they were like, this is actually what I wanted to do. This is what I want to spend my hours that I have on earth doing, rather than, whatever that happened to be beforehand, or at least for some people, for some people that was the case.
For sure. Like, I feel like I hit my soul's purpose. I really feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I don't think I'm like anything great or anything like that. I just feel like I found a niche, and like, I really love what I do. And you know what I mean? If I can, I'll do it until the day I die. Yeah. But I mean, like it, it's just different circumstances providing. I mean, like, I think I'll always do it. I think now that I started doing it, I think I'll always do it. If I ever have to take a job or something like that, I'll just take a job and do it on the side. But I think at this point, I think I would. No, I don't think I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I kind of think we're similar in that way. Like we got this thing off the ground during COVID. And without COVID, I don't know that I would have had the time to figure everything out and to get it set up. Now that COVID's over and we run the, it's fine. This is what I look forward to all week. But it does take a lot of time to figure things out and how to get things set up and how do you do this thing and that offer that time. I did want to tell you too, I pretty much have the same experience with Art Bell. I was working an overnight security job. Probably about 1998, 1999.
Yeah.
And I would have to drive around the city of Richmond, Virginia all night. I worked for the newspaper there and I would have to go check all these buildings and stuff like that. And so I was listening to, they would play the heavy metal show at like 1 o'clock in the morning and I could listen to some heavy metal. And then after that, I didn't know what to listen to and I had all this time to kill. And so I was flipping through the AM radio stations and I came across this guy who had a really good voice to listen to. He had a nice voice, and they were talking about Roswell and the lights over Phoenix. And ever since that point, I was a consistent Art Bell listener. Well, I could be. So it's nice to be able to, as we were talking earlier, it's nice to be able to talk to somebody who has that same love for Art Bell and what he did, because so many people have taken what he's done and we're just running with it, And I think if there's anything for him to be able to take away from this, that is he inspired a lot of people, and a lot of people are talking about things that they couldn't talk about when he first started doing his show, and that's absolutely wonderful.
What I wanted to say was I've had a chance to have some guests that he had on my show now, and that's amazing. Like just today, I had someone that was on Art Bell. I had on Michael and Nicole Sebastian. They were on 2015 Midnight in the Desert. They were on about night terrors and dreams. That's kind of what they came on today about my show. Then I've had on Ed Dames. If you remember Ed Dames, I've had on.
Oh wow! I'll have to go check that one out. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Wait, I've had Michael Lynch on. He was on my show like 7 times, and he died. He was only on once. He was on Midnight in the Desert. He died recently. Yeah, that's another thing. We're losing a lot of people.
We are.
Jordan Maxwell died. John Lear died. Robert Lindsay Milne, who was a psychic, died. Michael Lynch. It just seems like a lot of the old timers are going away. And that's sad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the good thing is we have the shows like that, so we can go back and listen to what they had to say, which is important. We have something, we have those stories documented, and that's going to be important with the things that are coming up. Before we get off the topic of Art Bell and we get into the Typical Skeptic podcast and some of the things that you wanted to discuss, did you have a favorite kind of Art Bell story? Like just something that, like your favorite kind of weird Art Bell moment for that show?
I have a bunch. Yeah, I have a lot. Yeah, I really can get into some. I mean, like I always see like Mel's Hole, but I think everybody likes Mel's Hole, right? Like
we were just talking about that last night. Like,
But then, like, I've always been into witchcraft. I mean, I'm not like a practicing, like I'm not, but I was just always interested in it. So I always liked the shows that Art did with Evelyn Paglini. She was like a Strega witch. I liked when he had the Hopi elders on. I liked when he had Red Elk on, who was like he was like a Native American. He talked about like lizard people in the underworld and stuff like that. There was another good one with another Native American guy. His name was Thunder Strikes. I tried reaching out to that guy. He died in 2013. He came on and talked about the shadow people. That was one of my favorite shows. And
he was talking about the hat. I think he might, if I might be wrong about this, Rob, but I think he might have been the first person that I heard talk about the Hat Man.
Yeah. He at the end, Art and him were going over a bunch. They had like, it was a really interesting show. I'd love to do something like this. Like Art had people calling into the show, and then they faxed in drawings of like shadow people that they supposedly saw, and he was going over them and telling them what kind of shadow person he thought it was. And he had all these Native American names for them I'd never heard before. It was really interesting.
Wow.
There's classic shows like that I'll never forget,
Yeah, there's
so many.
Yeah, so many. I always enjoyed the time travel.
I love the time travel.
I even mentioned it to you the other day. I was like, we need a time traveler on the show.
And she said, how many time travelers are there?
So we'll hold out.
Andrew Bashago would be a good one. He was on Art Bell. I tried reaching out to him. I wasn't able to get him though.
We do I actually did too. We have another version of this podcast called Stories, where I'll just kind of do like a typical, like, tell a story about something. And I actually did a story on that specifically with that whole government program. So that's something we've delved into. So we talked about what you like to talk about, what you like to listen to in Art Bell and all those things. What are some of the big things that you've been finding out and delving into over there on the Typical Skeptic podcast?
Well, I mean, like I would say, like when I first started off, it was all about like hidden history and like stuff like the Anunnaki and UFOs and the paranormal and stuff. But now it's like turned into like this, like, I interview a lot of supposed secret space program witnesses. I can't say they are or not. I just know I like to give them a platform because, like, if they are, plus I have a theory as to why these people might be getting their memories back. But like, and then that turned into me interviewing like people who are supposedly MILABs or military abductees, and also targeted individuals. I have some targeted individuals on my show. And so it's like a blanket, super soldiers, secret space program, targeted individuals, military abductees, alien abductees. You know what I mean? That's what the audience seems to like most about my shows. I think those are the shows they like the most that I do. It seems like.
Then, like, if like, let's just say, I don't know how many of those types of stories that you've had on those types of people that have had those experiences, but let's just say you had 12 people on that had those kinds of experiences, and 2 of them are for real, so like there's still something going on. It's like the amount of people coming forward with these kinds of stories, there's got to be something. It's not just all made up stuff,
Yeah, I totally agree. I think something's going on where people are getting their memories back. I don't know if this comes down to, I know this is going to sound really corny, but I don't know if there's like a good and this comes down to what I think about disclosure. Like, I don't know if there's like a good faction of the government, like trying to press for disclosure, and then a bad faction of the government trying to deny disclosure. But when I just say disclosure, I don't mean like, like there's ETs and they exist. I'm talking about like all these other blanket programs, that like the government's targeting individuals. They're testing out mind control, weaponry on their citizens, that they're abducting people out of their houses during, standard military abductions after they've had an alien abduction, that they're involved in some weird secret space program where they've been age regressed 20 years and back. I mean, I know it sounds insane, but I want to hear about all of that. Like, I love it. Like, I mean, like you said, if it's not real, then okay. But I mean, like, I tell my audience to use their discernment, and I don't expect them to believe everything. But I don't also, one thing that was what you guys probably remember about Art Bell was Art Bell would give a lot of pushback. Like, whereas I'm a really nice guy. I don't like to have a confrontation. I mean, like, with my personal life, I did martial arts my whole life. So like, if it was a street fight, that's one thing. But like, I don't want to have an internet confrontation with someone. So I don't really give any pushback. You know what I mean? I just let them.
We don't like to do that either. We just like to hear what their story is.
And like you said, I mean, it's a platform for discussion, which I think is important in the age that we live in, that people can come on and they can tell their story. And as a host of a podcast, I have, there's a couple of jobs. One is to try to give a good interview. There is an entertainment value to a podcast and to the show, but then we're also talking about, for us, we're talking about the paranormal and supernatural and weird, and we want to try to get good information out to people who want to see the show. But there's also nothing wrong with a good story, right? Yeah. Like, even if the person you find out later on down the road isn't being completely truthful, was it fun to listen to? Did you have a good time? And that's the way I kind of view some of my favorite guests on other shows that I listened to. I might've been like, I don't know if that was true or not, but that was a hell of a story. That was a hell of a story.
I agree. There's something about the story, the art of storytelling, I think that's been lost,
Yeah.
But I mean, some people are able to do it really well. And when you get guests like that, I just kind of like let them go with it. It's like, I think you have a really good point though. That's a really good point.
Like we all said that one of our favorite Art Bell moments is Mel's Hole. And if that isn't one where you're like, this cannot possibly be true, but it's a damn good story, then that's it.
Yeah. I know. I wonder if that was real.
I hope that it was, but
Well, there was that one episode he did with, I told you guys, he had Red Elk on, who was like this Native American elder, and he lived like in like East Cleanamnesia, Washington, right? And when you listen to the interview with Art Bell and Red Elk, he talks about, he says that Red Elk was part of an Art Bell chat club. So they had supposedly, like when Art Bell Coast to Coast was real big, they had these Art Bell chat clubs, and the one he was a part of was in Seattle or Washington or whatever, which was right near Mel's Hole. So they got together as a chat club and they tried to go to Mel's Hole supposedly. And he tells us right on the air, Art Bell, and he says that the Men in Black showed up. He doesn't say Men in Black. He said government agents in black, SUVs showed up and they told us we had to get out of there.
Oh, wow.
So that made me think there maybe there's something to Mel's Hole.
Had to be something.
Yeah.
That little seal creature that came out of Mel's Hole must have been for real.
Well, like I said, it's all to the good story. I was all in on Mel's Hole until the last one. And the last one, I was like, man, this is absolutely insane. But whether it's true or not, it almost doesn't matter at that point.
It's such a good story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you were talking about UFOs and alien abductions and all of these things and government disinformation. If we're going to see real evidence come out about this, how do you feel about all the big news that's come out over the last couple of years about UFOs and UAPs?
Oh, so much, right? It's like I hear it from all sides too. Like I have people who say that David Grush is like an agent and he's working for the government. Then I have people who come on my show and they say, no, he's the real deal. And you guys know who I'm talking about with David Grush, right? Mm-hmm. He's like the whistleblower guy. We've talked a lot. We talked a lot about him, man. Yeah, but what I was thinking was like, why would he file for whistleblower clearance? You know what I mean? But it doesn't seem like he doesn't seem to know the whistleblower. He knows people who are whistleblowers. It seems like he knows. It's not like he's the one. So I'm confused about that. But I mean, I think he saw something, and I really liked it when they had him and Commander David Fravor and Ryan Graves, who are both Air Force pilots who I respect. Yeah. My dad was a Vietnam vet, so like I have like a big respect for the military. I'm not very political at all. I don't like politics at all. But I mean, as far as like the military, I'm real patriotic and stuff like that. So it was nice to see those guys up there that are like, they're credible air fighter pilots, that they were telling their story, that they had these UAP encounters. I think we need stuff like that if we're going to forward the narrative of wherever this is going to go,
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think any kind of, I always, not that I don't give credence to anybody and everybody's story, because everyone has a voice. And I think the amount of people that actually want to commit some kind of hoax would be in a small minority of the population. I think most people want to know the truth. But, when you get a report from a police officer or military personnel, I feel like you have to hold those reports. They're not so easy to dismiss, especially someone who's a fighter pilot who's doing that for their job, and they come out and give these reports. And by the way, that's not too far from where we are, Rob. That's right. That's right down off the coast here of Virginia, where they're flying those jets off of the coast down in Virginia Beach. And supposedly they're coming across these. Yeah. They're down there and they're flying off, getting just a few miles off the beach, and they're running into these, orbs in the sky. So much so so much so that they're having to do pre-flight briefs on what they're going to do when they encounter them because they're happening so much.
Yeah.
So that makes me think, like, who knows what, right? Like, because if they're having to do these pre-encounter briefs, like, it seems like there might be a small portion of these like black ops government who we'll probably never know, but they obviously exist somehow, and they know more about this stuff than we do, and that the regular government knows. And it seems like the regular government's kind of scratching their head, like they don't know. It seems like maybe they don't know anything. Like sometimes when I listen to these UAP hearings, like the UAP task force hearing, I'm like, do these people know anything? Like, I mean, it doesn't seem like, you know, like there was one like congressman, I can't remember who his name was, but he brought up Maelstrom, which is, you know, that was like the nuclear warhead incident where the UFOs supposedly, you know, went over and they melted our nukes or they disarmed our nukes or something like that. Yeah. But he brought that up, and he brought up some other like poignant stuff, and I was like, okay, that's great, because I think like if they're going to be a part of that UAP task force, they should know a little bit about the history, you know, like so they can be like more informed, I guess, you know.
And then, you know, on top of it, you know, this isn't just an American thing. This isn't, you know, we have sightings all over the world in all different countries with all different cultures, with all different militaries. I mean, we saw that with Kapustin Yar in the Soviet Union. And we see today, we had Preston Dennett on, and we were talking about all the different UFO sightings that he was talking about in school, you know, landing in schools in Africa and all, you know, all over the world. This is happening. So, and a lot of governments have been more forthcoming than ours. But I do think it's interesting because if you go back to the 90s and you go back to, you know, the early 2000s, the government didn't want to say anything about it ever. The government, you know, you had the lights over Phoenix, you had all kinds of, you know, crazy sightings, and the people who wanted to find out information about UFOs were made fun of publicly. They were mocked. They were ridiculed. And now, all of a sudden, I feel like there's a legit platform for people who are interested in this. And so that has me a little bit on edge, because sometimes I feel like there's information coming out, but now I wonder if it's real information, if we're actually hearing what we actually should be hearing or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it even went to a step above in the 90s, and I think Carla Turner was murdered, and I think Barbara Bartholomew was murdered. They were both kind of abduction researchers. I've had their understudies on my show. I've had like James Bartley, who's like, I would say honestly, I think he's one of the best UFO researchers. I mean, he gets more into like my labs and stuff like that, and he talks a little bit about reptilians, but like he has he's very sound minded, and he's like, I just like, I love James. Like, I feel really lucky to have had him on my show. And he does research with Eve Lorgan. She wrote the book called Alien Love Bite. And they studied under Carla Turner and Barbara Bartholomew, and they think that they were absolutely murdered back in the day for what they knew, which is like that just shows you the big turnaround. And I think, honestly, I think John Mack might have been murdered too. I mean, they said he stepped out in front of traffic, but like, I don't know what the chances are of that. I mean,
who does that?
I guess it could happen, but you know, it's just strange, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Definitely worth asking the question. Well, so speaking about that, are you familiar with William Cooper and some of the books that he wrote?
I know Behold a Pale Horse. I never read it, but then I also heard that he was involved in like a violent shootout at the end.
Well, yeah. He's got a pretty interesting story. He wrote Behold a Pale Horse. He was a pretty enigmatic individual, someone who definitely people were all in with him or they were completely against him. He definitely kind of divided people, but he was bound to a wheelchair. He was run off the road in his vehicle, supposedly by black unmarked vehicles, ran off the road, paralyzed him from the waist down. He continued to write about what the government was doing, as you were talking about, the Illuminati and kind of like the government, the shadow government. And so much so that they came to arrest him for what he said, what he had been saying were false charges, and gets into a shootout with the FBI, if I'm not mistaken, and is killed. But I would have probably never even questioned his death if he wouldn't have been run off the road
first
by unmarked vehicles at first. And if you read the book now, there's some really good information in there. There's some information in there where you go, man, I don't know if this guy was all there or not, but but it's hard to discount some of the things that he gets right. You know, he's talking about this stuff in the 90s, and you can definitely tell there's been a movement towards some of the things he talks about in his books.
Yeah, so. That's like my friend said. I don't know how true this is, but my friend told me, he said that like Alex Jones of all people was like right about a lot of stuff as well. And I'm not political at all, but my friend said that like a lot of the stuff Alex Jones says he gets right. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like I don't know. I don't follow it enough to like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not really heavily, you know, I stick more to like UFOs and paranormal and stuff like that.
Yeah, me too.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think I'm interested in the government stuff. It's something that I would look at on my own. I've hesitated to have too much of it on the witching hours just because we live in such a politically charged time, and I try to stay away from politics on the show. So
that's awesome. I think that's great.
Yeah, and that's just I feel like a guest like that would just automatically kind of bring politics into the forum. And I'm not completely against it if it's done the right way, but you know, as a host, you have to be the mediator there. And I, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I want to deal with that.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I'll just say, like, you know, I've had people who've tried to talk politics before, and I've actually like kind of almost deleted the shows because again, it's like, I don't know enough about it. And I don't want to buy into any narrative. And at the same time, I'm like, well, what it seems like we're being I mean, if you look at everything on a grander level, and this isn't even political, this is just like it's something like Bill Cooper would say, we're being controlled. I think this is, I don't know how factual this is, but they say 100 families control 8 billion people. And the best way for them to control us is to divide and conquer. And the way they divide us is by getting us to fight over politics, fight over religion, fight over sex, fight over, you know what I mean? So it's like they want us to argue over stuff like that. You know, they that's how they get their power. You know.
Well, I'll say this: it became apparent to me during COVID. That's when I was like, you know, I've listened about this stuff, I've read about this stuff, I've discussed this stuff for a couple of decades now. But it became really apparent during COVID that when people had free time, like we were talking about earlier, they start doing the things they loved. And there was almost like this impulsive resistance against that. Like, oh my God, these people are enjoying their life.
How dare you?
How dare you? And then on top of that, what we saw afterwards with inflation and all that kind of stuff, it was like, I felt like you were getting to the point where people in the middle class were actually starting to live some kind of life where they didn't have to worry about things so much. And as soon as that happens, it always feels like inflation or something like that happens, to be able to put
prices, food
to be
prices.
to be able to put the peasants back in their place. And so I really do feel like there's something going on there where you have to have a working class. And if that working class starts moving up the ladder, you have to find a way to like kick them back down the ladder again.
Yeah, but see, that's why I want to like, I kind of want to like be so, because I've had like, I was a mortgage broker for 10 years, so I was successful at one point in my life, and then I got into a bad accident in 2010, 2011, and I had a guy jump in front of I don't want to dampen the mood here. I'll just tell you like a little bit of backstory on me. So in 2011, I had a guy jump in front of my car and kill himself. It was the craziest thing. It turned out that he was on drugs and he was like trying to kill himself, and he was in the bar all day saying he was going to kill himself or someone else. And you know, it was the hardest 6 months of my life because I had to think to myself, like, was I responsible for killing someone? But then, you know, I talked to I stayed in touch with the detective the whole time, like, you know, and I was like, you know, because I knew that I was innocent. You know what I mean? I knew that. I knew because like when I was driving up the road, it seemed like, and sorry, this is not on the topic of paranormal and UFOs, but
it's fine.
So when what happened was I had an ex-girl. I was driving my ex-girlfriend's, not my ex, just like back then. It was 2010 this happened. So this is a long time ago. But what happened was my car was in the shop. So I was driving my girlfriend at the time's car, and she called me. It was New Year's Eve of 2010 to be exact. And she said, my kids need to go to a party. Can you bring the car? I said, sure. So, I splashed some water on my face, and I started driving. It was rainy and dark, and I was driving up this hill, and next thing you know, something slammed into the back right side of my car where my blind spot would be, where I had no way of like reacting to it or anything like that. And then it turns out I got to pull over, and there's a guy laying there in the middle of the road. And I was like,
wow.
Like, this is crazy. And then, next thing you know, there's like police and cameras and stuff like that. And it was really hard to deal with. But then I found out that like the guy he was trying to jump. I guess he was trying to jump in front of people's cars. From what I found out, like these people, once they saw my name in the paper or whatever, they came forward and said that he tried jumping in front of their car, 2 different people's cars 5 minutes earlier. I guess when I got there, he did it the right way. But needless to say, that kind of took me up a little bit,
Yeah.
And I had a girlfriend die too. Not the same girl, different girl I was dating. She died of a drug issue. It was really sad. It was right after that too. It was like a year later. So it was like devastating to deal with. So that kind of took me out of like the working game for a little bit. Then when I went back into the job market, like I couldn't find a job in mortgages. I don't know if my head just wasn't there or if I just wasn't like, but I had to take like shit jobs, like not the greatest jobs in the world,
Yeah.
And so it makes me think that like, are we like forced? Do they try to force us into this labor system? You know what I mean? It seems like it's sometimes like it's a force thing. Like it's like, and then like you said, once we find a way out of it or we find a way around it, they try to like tighten the grip and like, no, of course you can't do that. You can't be having some like enjoyment with your life. They want you working somewhere where you're going to be miserable and like, but that's a little bit of background on what happened with me though.
Wow. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I know that couldn't have been easy to deal with.
2 terrible things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, time heals all wounds,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you have to look at it this way too. It's like, if those things wouldn't have happened, you would probably still be a mortgage broker and you would never have gotten on this path where you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
I know, right? I really think that. And I think if it wouldn't happen, like something worse would have happened. I think I was on a pretty bad path because that was like during my, this kind of dips into the paranormal a little bit. Did you guys ever hear of your Saturn return? They say when we're 30, we have a Saturn return. Because like, and supposedly like it's like where like your life gets like crazy or something, like astrologically, like something about it when we turn 30 years old, when we have a or what do they else they call it, you might know, Jenny. Do you know what I'm talking about? The Saturn return. Do you know about this?
Yes, it's like when everything gets shaken up and you have to kind of figure things out again.
Yeah, do you guys believe in that? Do you think that's a real thing?
It seems like a lot of people have that experience.
I'd never heard of that before. So what? So
it's every 30 years. So watch out when you turn 62 there, Rob.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because I had a very similar situation. Mine happened when I was pretty much 29. But, we had the Great Recession, which is another thing for you, saying you were in mortgages. The economy, completely went tanked. And, I ended up joining the Army. So I went from playing in metal bands to being a soldier. So that was right at that 30-year mark.
Did you see combat time too?
I was in Iraq for a year. Yeah, I wasn't an outside the wire guy. I was a commo satellite communications guy. But yeah, I went to Iraq for a year. So I was over there from
a lot of messed up stuff, huh?
I'll say this, which I actually don't think I've talked about on the show before, really. But I will say that my thoughts about the war changed once I was over there and kind of saw what was happening. And it kind of opened up my mind where my beliefs essentially on this are kind of going back to Eisenhower to beware the military industrial complex. There was a lot of money being made. There was a lot of money being made. I'll just say that.
If you look at that, the day, I don't know how much of this is like a fairy tale or whatever, but not what I'm about to say. I mean, and that's that they say that like the day before 9/11 or the day of 9/11 that like $9 trillion went missing from the Pentagon. Do you guys know about that? And do you believe that?
Heard a lot of conspiracies about 9/11. Yeah.
Well, from what I've heard, it's not even, I mean, the idea that the money went missing, I don't even think can necessarily be called a conspiracy because they had you can go back and watch the briefing where they actually disclose it. And then 9/11 happens.
Wow.
Yeah. Like you can go watch the news segments where they're talking about it. And then shortly after 9/11 happens.
And this makes me think there was that money going into like funneling some kind of secret space program now. You know, now we know what we know about reverse engineered UFOs and stuff like that. It makes me wonder, like, you know, the huge sum of money goes missing like that. Where does it go?
Yeah.
How does it just go on a board? Unless you're throwing that into black projects that you don't want the public sector to know about.
And then there just happens to be this catastrophic world-changing event that happens the next day. So that nobody thinks about that $9 million missing anymore.
And, you know, I would like to believe that, because I will say, I'll be honest about this. I don't believe that there was a conspiracy for 9/11, but I also don't believe that it's not worth having the conversation, if that makes sense.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
You're going to love this. You're going to love this. When I had Ed Dames on my show, you know, from Art Bell, I had,
if you're not familiar, let me catch everybody up. So if you're listening, and you're not sure who Ed Dame is. He was a military who was trained for remote viewing. Am I correct about that, Rob? Yeah. All right. Yeah. So Ed Dame, military remote viewer.
Yeah, and he told me that he said this is crazy. He said he has a whole theory about 9/11. I want to have him back on my show to talk about it. But he said that Muhammad Atta is living in Egypt right now. Now, if you don't know who Muhammad Atta is, Muhammad Atta is he's one of the bombers of 9/11. He's one of the Saudi people that they said blew up the tower.
But he's still alive.
James said he remote viewed him and he's living in Egypt.
Holy crap. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Weird.
I was afraid to talk to him more about it because I'm on YouTube and we were doing it on YouTube and I was afraid it would get taken down. If I was doing it on Rumble, I would have got more heavier into it. But because it was on YouTube, I couldn't really, they'll take that shit down. I don't know how they are here on Twitch, but on YouTube, they'll take that down.
Well, the good thing about Twitch is everything's live. So by the time they find out about it, the show's already over. So we can say whatever the hell we want. Yeah,
it's only up for a couple of weeks on Twitch. So
yeah, as long as I leave my top one, we're okay.
I've had live on YouTube where they went. I've been live and they've given me a strike during the live.
Wow.
They're they just I have to warn everybody before they come on. I'm like, you can't say the V word. I don't know if we can say it on here, but I won't even do that to you guys. But you can't say it on YouTube. I mean, at least on my channel, they targeted me. They suspended me twice for that, for the V word. Because people talked against it, and I don't know. I just I feel like you should be freedom of choice, whether you want to do that or not.
Yeah.
You have freedom of speech, That's still a thing.
Yeah. Well, do we?
I don't know.
Let's go back
Priestess
to
of Wonderland. Priestess of Wonderland showed up right when we were talking about the Saturn return, and she said it's when Saturn returns to the place it was when you were born.
Okay. And so I imagine that's about a 30-year cycle.
Can you explain what that? Sorry.
She was just talking about the astrological part of it. That Saturn's in the same placement it was.
So Saturn is in a placement in the sky when you're born, and I'm guessing it takes a certain amount of time for that to happen again, about 30 years. So Saturn returns to the place where it was in the cosmos, in our sky, on the day you were born.
And there's a lot of weird, like esoteric stuff with Saturn too. Like there's the black cube of Saturn, and there's like, that they say that like, it's like Satanists pray to and stuff like that. And there's a lot of stuff with Saturn that you look into it. It's a heavy conspiracy topic.
Weird.
I don't know enough about it.
It's a cool planet. Got rings.
There we go. We got the update here. So Hoaxers and Priestess of Wonderland both confirmed that it's a roughly 30 years, but it can take anywhere from 26 to 32 years to return back to its point of origin from the day you were born. So cool. That's the benefits of having our expert Alyson, the Priestess of Wonderland, hanging out with us in chat. Thanks so much, and Hoaxers. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
So there we go. Yeah. Well, I don't know. So, there's lots of stuff you can get down the rabbit hole in that for sure. I mean, but that goes back, we were talking about Art Bell earlier. How many times did he have somebody on the show and they would start talking about some top secret government stuff or Roswell or talking about Area 51, and all of a sudden the radio signal would go out or the caller would get disconnected. Do
you remember the Area 51 caller who said he was flying over Area 51? Mm-hmm. That was funny.
Yeah,
that was a good one, man. Like that was hilarious. Like, but one thing that was interesting. I have another tie into Art Bell. I had Jim Goodall on my show. He's like an aerospace engineer, or not engineer. He's like an aerospace historian. Like I was lucky to have like him and Michael Stratt on my show. But the reason why Jim Goodall is interesting is because he's a part of that whole Vegas crew that was like going out into the desert back in the day. Like with Bob Lazar, and like supposedly Jim Goodall said that they would have to wear like certain like kinds of like pants or something, because the scorpions would bite your legs out in the desert. And he said that they would go out there. Bob Lazar told them when they would go out there and when to go out there, and they would stand like right by Area 51, and he would see the government launch their UFOs. Like it was like nothing, like mm-hmm. I don't know to believe it or this would be stuff like, I guess he knew John Lear and Bob Lazar.
Yeah. And the whole John Lear,
he died too.
Yeah. John Lear and Bob Lazar are two big parts of that. I mean, from the stories I've heard, you could go out with John Lear and Bob Lazar and you were like guaranteed to see UFOs. Like, they took you out there and everyone who went out there with them were like, it was all of a sudden like the sun would go down and there'd be like a light show of UFOs flying around. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what was interesting about the Bob Lazar case was how he was really done in by the government. Like they tried to erase his record. Like if he wasn't legit, why did they try to erase his record? And then also he knew about element 115. I thought that was huge because that, supposedly that hadn't been discovered yet. And now all of a sudden, he knows about it like 20 years before. So there's a lot of interesting stuff to the Bob. Plus, let's just say Bob Lazar, really intelligent guy, a lot more intelligent than I'll ever be. Like he was like next level intelligent. You don't get people like that every once in a blue moon. Like he's like a especially highly intelligent person. Like he, I think he put a jet engine into a race car or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like
he broke the land speed record. So the story goes, he broke the land speed record. He worked at Los Alamos Labs on propulsion systems because he was just interested in making things go fast. Story goes, he makes it in the local paper. He makes it in the local paper. Local guy breaks land speed record. He's going into work that day, and Edward Teller is sitting there by the front door. Looking at the article in the newspaper when he walks by, and he says, "Hey, that's you." And he was like, "Yeah." And he talks to Edward Teller for a little bit. And then a little while later, he gets a phone call, supposedly where he gets employed going and working at over at Groom Lake over in Area 51. And if there's anybody who would have been able to start a program like that, it probably would have been Ed Teller. So, I will say, like I said, a lot of times I'm like you, I don't believe everything that I hear. Sometimes it's just fun to talk about, and I don't come away with really an opinion one way or the other. There's not enough evidence to necessarily sway me. But for Bob Lazar, there's one thing that really does get me, and that's the fact that they go back, and what he says is they erase his degrees from, I think it was UC Berkeley, and I can't remember the other university that it was from. They go back, say he never attended there, and they also say that he never worked at Los Alamos Labs. But
except his name's in the phone directory.
His name's in the phone directory for Los Alamos Labs in like 1982. So if he didn't have those degrees and he didn't work at Los Alamos Labs, then why is his name in the phone directory for Los Alamos Laboratory? You know,
that's not a mistake. You know, I think that was something. I think he was definitely privy to something. You know, like, and then the story's so interesting. Like, it gets so interesting when you find out that like the government was going to get rid of him, not kill him, but like they were going to fire him because they found out his wife was having an affair or something, and they think that was like messing people up once that happened. So like, you know, they didn't want any, you know, because they were monitoring his phone calls and they knew before he did that his wife was having an affair. I mean, it's like, so it's like this is like the type of shit you hear on soap operas. You know what I mean? It's like, it's real. It's like I don't know, you know, it's so interesting though, you know. I was going to ask you, what did you guys think of Art's parts? Did you think that was real? Do you remember Art's parts?
I know. Well, I think I'm familiar with what you're talking about. I know he had some metal supposedly from a UFO that had been tested, right? And they weren't able to discover the origins of it. There's a couple things I have questions about actually from after Art Bell passed. But yeah, do we know what happened to them?
Well, one thing that I question, and I think I know who was doing it, but I'm not going to say who it is on the radio because I don't want to, because I still listen to the place, and I wouldn't want to cause any problems just in case they were ever listening. But when he was doing Midnight in the Desert, he was highly targeted, not like targeted individual, like targeted, like nobody was beaming like, you know, radio waves into his brain or something like that, but like there was definitely a shooter outside of his house. Like he had to stop Midnight in the Desert, and there was a shooter outside of his house, and there was a shooter lurking on his properties like multiple times, so many times that it made him quit the show.
Yeah,
like,
I remember that.
Like his life was in danger. And what I found interesting was soon after he quit the show, he died of an overdose, which I thought was weird too. Like, why would Art Bell die of an overdose? That doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even know that. I mean, I don't think anybody knew that he used prescription drugs. Like, and even if he didn't, I'm not making excuses for him or anything, but it seems like I don't see him being out of control with it. You know what I mean? But there are functioning addicts. There are. I know that. So I'm not like giving him leeway either. I'm just saying, like, it just all seems a little bit weird to me. You know, and but that's like I naturally tend to be more conspiratorial. So you know, like I always think there's a conspiracy with everything. So. You know. Yeah.
And I don't want to put false information out because it's been a while since I've gone over the details of it all, but I know he was battling with like CPD because, you know, he was an avid smoker, and I know he had some lung issues and stuff like that. And he was kind of in very poor health. And if my memory serves me correct, he was taking some kind of medications to help with that. And then that is he was not in good health when he died, but it happened to be from a drug overdose. So I'm not sure. There's a lot of things that could have gone into that. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I always wondered that whatever happened after he passed away too was, do you remember Bugs and the map for the Bigfoot?
I was just, you know, it's so funny. This is you can tell people are on the different wavelengths. I was just going to ask you guys what you thought about Dogman and Bigfoot, like your thoughts on cryptid. Because I went to a paranormal conference here in Pittsburgh, like, you know, like maybe a weekend ago. My friend Maya, she does like quantum healing hypnosis. She came down, she rented a table out, and then she picked me up, and then we went. And it was a cool. I streamed a little bit of it live. I went around to like all the vendor tables, and I streamed like, you know, and I got a couple interesting people on camera. I got Raymond Keller, who's Cosmic Ray. He wrote the books on Venus. He was there. I got Stan Gordon, who's like a Pittsburgh legend for UFOs. He's had a UFO hotline open since 1969. I got him on camera.
Wow.
And I got Fred Saluga, who's like, these are all old timers. Fred Saluga is like the West Virginia PA MUFON director. And he's also a part of my Pittsburgh UFO group that I'm a part of. Like, but they were all there, and I got them all on film. It was pretty cool, and my fans seemed to like it, I'd love to do more boots on the ground stuff like that, I'd love to go around to like different conferences and, different paranormal hotspots. And I'd love to do something like that. That's what might be the next, iteration of my show, if I can ever get my shit together.
Yeah. No. That's good stuff.
You
can probably get your shit together faster than the UK can get their shit together.
It's so interesting when you guys were telling that story at the beginning. Like I was going to tell you guys, I was a surfer, so I used to come down to where I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but I was always a skateboarder my whole life, so I was always into like skateboarding. And then I had a girlfriend when I was 21 years old. I hadn't been to the ocean before I was 21 years old. So when I went to I was 20 years old. That's when it was. I went to North Carolina, to Wilmington, and I saw that people were surfing there, and I was like blown away by it. So then me and my friend, we started doing all these surf trips on the East Coast. We started going to Virginia Beach, North Carolina, Florida, Jersey, Boston, anywhere, Rockaway Beach in New York City. And sometimes we would go in like the dead of winter. We would wear like full wetsuits and stuff. I was really into it, because I never grew up with an ocean here. So it was but I never knew the beaches were that bad in some other places. Like, because I was so used to seeing what it's like here on the East Coast, and it's not that bad. People will say stuff. People will say, oh, you go to Jersey and there's needles in the water. It's not that bad. I mean, it wasn't when I was going. I don't think it is now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think some of the rivers, especially some of the rivers, are pretty bad. I mean, I think, for the most part, I think the beaches on the East Coast are somewhat clean, at least in terms of what we're seeing over there in Britain.
They don't have 400 years worth of shit floating around in them, so I guess we're doing all right.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of alarming. Yeah, so you were asking about Bigfoot. Yeah. We did have a guest on to talk about Bigfoot. You might know a guy named Ron Moorhead. He was on.
He's cool. Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, and he was excellent because he has all the audio that he captured in the 70s and stuff from Bigfoot up there in the Pacific Northwest. And I wanted to have him on because I think he's pretty believable. I mean, he's been telling the same story for a long time now. He doesn't change his story at all, and he's got that audio. And it's probably when it comes to Bigfoot and any audio I've heard, it's probably, I mean, you never know if something's fake or not, but to me, it seems pretty believable. I mean, I wouldn't know unless I was there to see it recorded, but it's pretty interesting to me, his audio that he has.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I look at like Bigfoot and Dogman, and I'm like perplexed by it. Like, I've had people like Stan Gordon come on my show, and he told me that he's told me stories where he's seen Bigfoot by UFOs, Bigfoot holding balls of light or orbs, Bigfoot tracks in the ground where they're tracking them, then they just disappear. He said there was this one incident where this couple, this was back in the 70s, we had a UFO flap here in Western Pennsylvania. Like it was like, I think it was like 69 or 70, 73, right when Stan started his UFO hotline. And he told me that they got called out into the scene or something like that. I'm trying to piece this together, but there was two Bigfoots in the field and a huge UFO flying overhead, and these hunters were there. And supposedly this hunter took a tracer bullet and he fired a tracer into the Bigfoot. Like he's like 200 feet away. He fires a bullet into it, the Bigfoot puts its hand out and it makes some weird screaming noise, and it just disappears. And then the UFO disappears.
Wow.
I don't even know what to make of that, because where I was getting with that was sometimes I think that Bigfoot could be like a natural creature, but when I hear stuff like that, I'm like, what is it? I don't know what it is. It's crazy, It's sometimes I'm left with more questions than I am answers.
That's usually what happens. For every answer, there's 20 more questions. Well, I think Ron Moorhead's most recent book that he was telling us about is called Quantum Bigfoot.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. So he has theories about that too, that they might be interdimensional or whatnot.
Yeah, I think
so. That'd be interesting.
I think that's what he was kind of coming to the conclusion is that Bigfoot is interdimensional, and that's why it's so hard to be able to get evidence for them. And that's been, I feel like that. Well, I won't say a recent development, but when you talked about Bigfoot, I wasn't alive in the 70s, but if you go back to the 60s and 70s when Bigfoot is becoming a big topic and kind of becoming mainstream, it's just this cryptid creature. And in the 90s, I feel like he was still kind of just like this cryptid, maybe undiscovered ape kind of deal. But then I started noticing once we got past 2010, I started, in talking about like Midnight in the Desert and stuff like that, there started becoming a really big question of, hey, how come all these Bigfoot sightings are correlating with UFO sightings? And that seems to be kind of the new thing with Bigfoot is a huge connection with UFOs, a huge connection with aliens. And so it's kind of opened up a whole new door with Bigfoot, I feel like.
Yeah, it's made him be like more like a paranormal creature, He's more. I say he, but it seems like it's more like a paranormal. And then there's Dogman too, Like Dogman's a real interesting one. Like, I sometimes on my favorite thing to do, like if I'm not listening to Art Bell, is I'll put on a show. It's called Dogman Encounters. Have you ever heard of this?
I haven't.
Oh, it's pretty good. It's just this guy. His name's Vic Cundiff and he gathers reports from people supposedly who've had encounters with Dogman, and they tell their story. Now, what's weird is like everybody obviously is like survived to like tell the tale. No, so if you're questioning it, you're like, well, this is weird that everybody's like never had an interaction with one of these things if they're but like. But that's what it is. They have these like nearby escapes with Dogman, like supposedly. But like, I don't know. Maybe they're a paranormal creature too. But sometimes I wonder if they're like a lab experiment gone wrong. Like if it was like because but then that goes back to like those have been around for years. Like people used to talk about like werewolves. There was the movie Teen Wolf and all that. Like. So I guess that legend of the Dogman has been around for a while. I guess they just started calling it Dogman recently, Yeah,
well, that's interesting because the Dogman wasn't anything that I was always super familiar with. I would kind of hear about it on the periphery, and like it wasn't anything that ever like completely captured my imagination. But we've had guests on the show who have talked about Dogman quite a bit, and for as popular as Bigfoot is, evidently these Dogman sightings are just as numerous, if not more numerous, than the Bigfoot sightings are. Like it's a big thing.
Yeah, it's like the world of cryptids is like starting to like. Another one is winged humanoids as well too. They're having like I know that like when I was at that conference, I was talking to people and they were saying that they're seeing there's a place here in Pennsylvania. It's called the Chestnut Ridge, and the people have written books on it and stuff like that. It's just like one of these like triangle areas. Like if you have like the Bridgewater Triangle up in Massachusetts, or the Alaskan Triangle, or the Bermuda Triangle, you have like these paranormal hotspots that exist. That's like the way the Chestnut Ridge is, and people have seen like here in Pennsylvania like giant snakes, thunderbirds, dogmen, Bigfoot. Black Panthers in Pennsylvania, which is really weird. They're they're not like from here, but somehow people see this stuff. I don't know what to think of it. You know what I mean? Like I've never seen anything like that. I wish I did, but I never have.
Our neighbor had a cryptid sighting in our yard the other day.
This week. Yeah.
She said she saw a creature that looked similar to a raccoon, but it wasn't, and it looked like this animal that's related to a raccoon, but it only exists in like Mexico, Central America, South America. Sometimes they come up into Arizona, but she swears up and down it was this Cody Mundi animal.
Was it a chupacabra? Is that what it would it be?
No, it's like a real animal, but it doesn't exist, and it doesn't live in Virginia. It's only from South
America.
So it doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, we had a deer. We had a deer that was frequenting our yard and our neighborhood, and our neighbor found it dead behind in his backyard, and it had been mutilated pretty bad, from what I understand. And that morning, well, this gets interesting. That morning, I was getting ready for work. I was making my coffee. And as I was kind of stirring my coffee and getting ready to get my stuff ready to walk out the door, I looked out the window in the kitchen into the woods behind my house, and I saw a weird creature. And it was running behind a little tree line. We have like some trees right at the back of the yard, and I could see it behind there, and it moved really fast behind the trees. It was so interesting that I was kind of running late for work, and I decided I was going to stand there and see if I could see it again. However, I will say that if I had to say what it was a really big rabbit. That's what it looked like to me.
But I have seen the rabbits that we have in our yard, and they are not really big.
And I did not get a good look at it because it was behind the trees and it was moving pretty fast. And then I didn't think anything of it. I just went to work and did my thing, and I came home that afternoon. And then that's when Jenny was like, "Hey, check this out." The neighbor said she saw this in our backyard. And it was like this creature from South America and Central America. Yeah. And I was like, well, I saw something this morning. So that's really crazy. So I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just inviting the weird here,
Well,
Well, Hoaxer said get a broom and shout shoe. What'd you say, Rob?
Jenny, you have a lot of experiences with ghosts because you're a medium, right? Like,
yes,
so
sir.
Are you like on all the time?
That's an excellent question that I think is starting to change, because it used to be that I could turn it on and off like a switch, and that I was only open to it when I wanted to be open to it. But over the past few weeks, I have noticed that I'm starting to pick up on stuff when I'm not expecting it. So interesting that you asked that question.
It was interesting. I feel like we're all coming into our abilities. I really feel like I don't think we've talked about this yet. This might be an interesting topic, is like the great awakening that's going on. That's one thing that I do see with my podcast. Like, it seems like we're going through a mass awakening. It seems like people are turning into healers. People are turning into psychics. It's not turning into, I guess it would just be more like embracing their own innate abilities, or coming into their abilities. It seems like
I like the word embracing. That's a good word, embracing.
Yeah. And it seems like more people are having paranormal encounters. More people are having ET encounters. More people are getting SSP memories back. It just seems like everything is happening right now. It seems like the most exciting time to be alive. And I don't know why. I don't know what it is about this time. If it's something like we're in like a golden year or something like that, or if the Vedas would call golden year, or if it's just like the precession of the equinox or something like that. I have no clue. But it seems like a lot of stuff is happening there. Do you guys see that as well, or what do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a lot of different aspects of why all that is happening, and probably some that we're not even aware of,
I think,
but
yeah.
Going back to 2020, I think that was part of it. People actually had a time to be with themselves, to quiet the rest of the world and not have to be expected to be somewhere or do something. And I think that was one of the things.
I could plug in my phone.
Yeah, well, my theory on that is that I think there is something going on. And the reason I say that is, well, I guess over the last few years, I've gotten into the community more, so I'm going to see that more. Obviously, with Jenny's stream and our community, these are the things that we talk about. But I also feel like Well, like last year, I was going out Christmas shopping, and I got the kids, and it's like, hey, let's go, get some Christmas presents. We're going to different stores, and I'm noticing when I'm going into the stores and looking through the clothes, I go into like Kohl's, and there's like a whole bunch of shirts with tarot on it, and all kinds of spiritual slogans and stuff like that on clothes at like mainstream, clothing stores. And like, you never would have seen that at all before. You would have had to have gone to some kind of like obscure, like,
woo-woo shop.
woo-woo shop, like bookstore or something to find stuff like that. So, spiritualism, itself is becoming mainstream. And I guess the question then would be, is it trendy, or is it an awakening?
I think it's an awakening, but it is interesting. Like I went into Five Below. Do you guys have those down there? Like and I was looking at the books in Five Below, and it was kind of just like you just said, it was like all like books on like psychic and tarot and you know what I mean, astrology,
dream interpretation. Yeah, it's like a ton of stuff in there.
I was like, I was like, we never had anything like this when I was a kid. I was like, if I was a kid, I'd be so happy. Like, we never had anything like that. You had to like go like to like some obscure place and like hope that they had something, like it was like.
It wasn't at the Five Below, that's for sure. Yeah. A lot of people were bringing up, bringing up the age of Aquarius. With, we've left the age of Pisces. Now we've entered the age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is all about like forward thinking, being out of the box, like the really weirdo stuff. So that's another aspect of this time that we're living in right now.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, it definitely does. Like, I think that more people are becoming interested in this. I mean, I guess I can gauge from like the people that watch my show, like that, like the amount of new people that like, well, I'll see in the comments section or something that have like, or I get emails and DMs from people who just have like basic questions on a regular basis. And it takes up a lot of my time, to be honest. But like, I try to answer everybody's email. I try to answer everybody's direct message because, I know what it was like when I was first, in 2016, where I was at, when I first heard the story of the Anunnaki. Like I was lucky to have someone like Matt LaCroix where I could email him and he was nice enough to email me back. Now, nowadays, that dude, he's like coming across new discoveries. He discovered an ancient land in Turkey or something like that. He's, so he's like, he's doing some pretty big stuff now. But I mean, like, it's just like, it's amazing. You never know, like, so I try to answer everybody, and I try to, I try to get back to everybody. I feel like it's a way to pay it forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If anything else, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a little bit of time left. We're hitting about 9:40. So if you have some questions for Rob, go ahead and put them in chat and we'll get to them. We have the Element 115 and the channel points down there you can spin. That's the name for our channel points here.
Balthazar's the Element 115.
So if you want to highlight your message, feel free to do that. Whether you have a comment or a question, that's fine. I do want to say I'm not Christmas shopping now. That was last Christmas when I was Christmas shopping.
During Christmas time, people.
But if you are one of those early shoppers and you're starting to get stuff ready for Christmas here as we're getting ready to approach June, we do have new merch up on the Witching Hours store. So go check it out. See, nothing else, just go look at the designs and tell me whether or not you like them or not. We spent a little time working on that. And Keisha
made some of them.
has some of the designs on there. So we have that. We have that to go check out. Make sure we have the link up at the top of chat to go check out the Typical Skeptic podcast. Make sure you go over there, give a subscribe. If you like listening to our show, there's going to be lots of guests over there that you would probably enjoy checking out.
And you just heard like about 24 different amazing guests that Rob has had on his podcast. So I know I want to go back and find some of these ones he was talking about.
I mean, just to give your audience an idea, I'm on episode 1234 right now.
Good Lord, man.
I do it full time. So I do streams. I do live streams every day. And if not every day, I'll at least put out a pre-recorded video. I have like 34 videos I haven't put out yet.
Wow.
And that's just, because sometimes I do 2-3 interviews a day because I feel like I want to treat it like a full-time job. So for me to do that, I feel like I have to be like, I have to really like, I don't know, like, I don't know, because I don't have any other job. So it's like, it's my main, it's my main thing.
That's your income. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like,
do you sleep?
But it's hilarious
because it doesn't sound like you're sleeping, Rob.
I sleep. I do, but I've been having an issue. Like I had a girlfriend that was like, I thought she was like I don't know if I told you this when you were on my show.
You did share that with me.
Did I tell you? Yeah, she was like my twin flame. And then what happened is like, I broke up with her. And then 3 months later, I started experiencing this weird liver pain. Well, then that never went away. It's still there. And I've had I didn't want to go through mainstream medical, but I had like CT scans done. I had the camera, they put every organs, blood work. They didn't find anything. Some people think it's like that I'm harnessing anger or resentment there, like, I don't know,
have you had a session with your friend who does QHHT yet?
Yeah, it was interesting when we were doing a session, we were like specifically trying to target that. My stomach or liver area was making like weird like contractions, and it felt like it was healing. So I think it did do some benefit. And then I have so many friends who are like energy healers. Like I have one friend, she's amazing. Like if you guys are friends with me on Facebook, the girl I'm friends with, her name is Priscilla Catherine Lapierre. She says she does it for me because it's love. She's kind of like my love interest too. Like she lives in Canada and I live in the United States. So it's like, but she's a healer too. And when I'm in pain, I'll ask her to heal me, and she's able to do it. I couldn't believe it because I'm skeptical of things. Like that's my name. Right? But I mean, like she can really take the pain away remotely. And I asked her, I said, how are you able to do that? And she said, it's because of the love. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, like she has she's a good person. She's a really, she does shows with me. She comes on my show. We're doing one tomorrow, I think, with her and Christy Campbell. They have like Secret Space Program Memories or something like that.
Wow.
So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I wasn't following you over there, but I did go give you a follow over there on Facebook, so I can keep up with what's going on over there. All right. Okay, so we do have a question for you here.
Shows on Facebook. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
We had a question. We had a question here. Has Rob interviewed Chris Bledsoe? Are you familiar with Chris Bledsoe?
I'd love to interview Chris Bledsoe, UFO of God. I have his book. I think he has a real. I'll just say I am skeptical, but I think he has a really credible case. And I think he would be a great interview. I'd love to interview him. That's on my bucket list. That definitely is for sure. But for the record, I do think he's credible. I do.
Princess Boo Boo wanted to know if your liver pain might be an attachment.
I had Phil Barrow, who's a healer from England. He said I had a demon in my studio here, which was interesting. And yeah, I thought something was here too. Like Priscilla tried clearing it out a couple times. And then, I thought she did. And then my ex-girlfriend before that was like, saged it and stuff. But then I woke up in the middle of the night and I was being manipulated. I was like, something was like touching my organs. Like it was weird. Like something was like, I would wake up in the middle of the night and something would be literally like the best way I could put it is like we could feel like something messing with my heart or something. So it could be an attachment. But Phil's a good healer, and he took it away, but then the pain came back. I don't know why. It's weird.
Did you when you were doing the QHHT session, did you ask why you're having the pain?
Yeah, she said I have to go back and watch my session again. I never go back and watch them. I've been regressed like 10 times. Why
are you not watching them? That's how you learn what's going on, man.
I know. I got to be better at that.
How do you know? How do you know what's happening if you don't listen to it? Are you scared to listen to it?
I don't know. Is there something about like I don't watch any of my past shows either?
Yeah.
I don't like watching myself or something.
Well, is it a video or is it just audio?
It's both.
Well, then don't watch it. Just listen.
Oh, that's good. That's a good.
I bet there's something in there that you need to hear about this liver thing.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And you don't have to look at yourself, like, I'm not there. I'm just listening.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, like, I was gonna say, there's never run out of things to talk about with me. Like, I could talk to you about a million different things. I that's what I'm good at. I guess that's one reason why I'm good at the podcast, because I just can talk about, like, whatever, for, like, I don't know, weird amounts of time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we like to do too. That's why we're doing this as well.
Well, awesome.
I want to ask real quick. We've talked about, the guests that you've had on, talking about, abductions and seeing UFOs and Bigfoot. Do you have any experiences that you've had personally?
As far as, like, UFO, I had one. I was outside after a podcast one night. I was smoking a cigarette, and I was looking up at the sky, and I wasn't really asking for it, but I had been asking for it, like, a couple of nights leading up, and I was like, I'd really love to see a UFO. But it's weird. It happens when you don't think it's going to happen. And I'll tell you exactly what happened. So what happened was so I looked up at the sky, and there was something. It was so far away. It was really far. So it wasn't like a close sighting or anything like that. And it was something zigged, then it zagged, then it zigged again. And I thought to myself, I was like, well, a shooting star doesn't do that. A shooting star just goes in one trajectory, right? It's not going to zig, then zag, then zig like that. So I think what I saw might have been a UFO there. And then I've had a lot of paranormal experiences. I used to have sleep paralysis when I was a kid. I was had old hag syndrome. I had a lot of sleep paralysis. And then most recently, the hauntings in my studio here, like, where, like, there was something weird going on. People have told me that I'm an alien abductee or secret space program. I have no memories of it, so I can't talk about that. The only stuff I can say is what I know for sure,
Interesting. Do you feel like, was it always, like, pretty consistent, the kind of experience, like the amount of experiences that you're having, or that now that you've been doing this podcast, does it seem like it's more things?
It was more. And so since I've been doing the podcast, it seems like when you open yourself up to this stuff, like, more paranormal stuff comes in for sure.
Absolutely.
Because it's weird. Like, when you experience the paranormal, I don't know how to explain this. This is how it was in my case. Like, it doesn't even seem like it's paranormal, because you almost have to, like, you're second guessing what's going on. You're like, something's moving around in here, something's touching me, but is it really? And then you almost like you start to think in your mind. I'm thinking to myself, am I going crazy? Am I losing my mind? But it wasn't that. It was definitely something for sure. Paranormal.
Yeah, your brain's always going to try to make sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, it was definitely strange. Like, it was for sure.
That's actually a good way to put it, because I feel like the paranormal experiences I've had, that was almost what caught me off guard, is that it wasn't paranormal. It was real. Right.
Yeah.
So, like, you think of this thing as, like, these mythical kind of events that happen, but then when the paranormal happens, it doesn't seem paranormal. It seems real, and it seems normal. And so then it kind of confuses my brain. Did I really just see that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly how it was. It was really weird. It was really strange. It was but I still haven't seen a shadow person. I'd love to see that. That was one of the big things that would drew me to the Art Bell show back in the day, was the shadow people. Like, I loved all those shows he did on the shadow people. Like, I don't know. I just love that topic for some reason or whatever. Like, he had a good guest. Her name was Morgan Spence. She was like a British gal and she talked about the shadow people. Then he had Thunderstrikes on. and I can't remember who else. He did a couple shows on the Shadow People. I'm gonna, it's after I do awesome shows like this. Like I thought this was a pretty awesome show tonight. Like now
thanks.
you're gonna make me want to go and listen to Art Bell tonight because like you guys got me pumped up to listen to Art Bell. So I'll be listening to Art Bell all night tonight.
Yeah, I might be doing the same.
Because you guys are so easy to talk to. I just feel like you guys are like two friends that like, like I had for like a long time or something. And this was like, I was so nervous before this because it's easy for me to do interviews, but when it's the other way around, I get so nervous and
it's a little different. Yeah. It's different being in the hot seat, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. But you guys have made it like really comfortable and really cool. Like it was just like 2 hours flew by and like you guys are like awesome to talk to.
Oh, honestly. Thanks, Rob. It was very fun.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
You guys do this because your guests are going to love you because you bring such an authenticity to this. You guys deserve to be. I mean, like you should be podcasting. Like you're built for it, I think.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it. Well, that's one of the reasons we started this thing is a lot of times we'd be hanging out with friends at a party and I was in the back, in the back of the house talking to somebody about UFOs or Bigfoot or ghosts or whatever. And Jenny would come and be like, hey, we got to go. We got to get up early tomorrow. And I'd be like, okay, hold on 1 second. And I, talked about William Cooper or something. And it's like, okay,
an hour later,
we need to go. And I'd be like, all right, guys, take care. And out the door I went. And I was like, well, let's just do that and record it and make it, make it a show. So that's kind of what we do. So I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, we've almost wrapped up our 2 hours. So
got a little bit of time left. If anybody's got questions for Rob, ask him now. Yeah,
if you have a question, put it in chat. Use and highlight it if you want, and I'll let you ask another question if you want to, Jenny. But the last one I had for tonight is this will be episode 61 for us, and you said you've done over 1,200, so that's a lot of podcasts. So I know this won't be easy for you, and you won't be able to pick just one. You've probably had a ton of guests that have made an impact on you. But if everyone was going to go over to YouTube tonight and go check out one of your podcasts over there on the Typical Skeptic podcast, what do you think would be a good one for someone to check out first?
I would tell them to go to Rumble because all my uncensored stuff's on Rumble.
Okay, so Rumble.
My YouTube stuff's good. My YouTube stuff's good, but you're going to get a lot of good guests. Like I'm looking through my YouTube now, and I have Dr. Kim McGeorge, Tony Sayers, Rich West, like a bunch of people. But then if you go into like my Rumble, I have interviews with like a lot of the SS people like Daryl James, Penny Bradley, Arkeem Ra. All those SSP people, I had to put those on Rumble because they would have got censored by YouTube. My James Bartley and Eve Lorgan interview is on Rumble, and it's got like somehow it's got like 3,000 views, and I mean that's a lot for Rumble because I don't do that well usually on Rumble.
Yeah,
that's
amazing.
So it's But I would say check out YouTube and check out Rumble because like they might find a little bit more uncensored stuff on Rumble and that they might like those guests a little bit better. I don't know.
So I have that. I have that in chat.
Go to YouTube.
Excellent. I have the Rumble link in chat so people can check you out over there too. And for all of you who are listening on podcasts platform, wherever you are, over on Spotify and iTunes and all those wonderful places, all those links to the Typical Skeptic podcast will be listed in the comment section down below. So you can find your way over to check out more of Rob's stuff down below. Yeah. And I guess do you have another question before we head out tonight, Jenny?
Hoaxers has a question. Hoaxers wants to know if there's any upcoming interviews that you're excited for.
I would have to check my calendar. Well, I think the one with Priscilla and Christy should be really good tomorrow. And then I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm going to a conference in July that I'm really excited about. I haven't been planning too much stuff out because I'm part of this Full Disclosure Movement.org conference. It's a lot of SSP people. It's the website's Full Disclosure Movement.org. And so a lot of the people I just named are going to be there. It's I don't know. It's like a SSP MyLab targeted individual conference, and I'm going to be doing like some of the live stream stuff there, which I'm not really, I don't know too much about. I mean, I know a little bit, but I don't know,
the guy running that, Brian, right?
Yeah, that's Brian. Yeah.
He got a personal reading from me, and I got to dive into all kinds of stuff for him.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and he was letting me know about what he's got going on, and that you were going to be doing that with him. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. But I should have some. I'm going to start scheduling for June here soon. I mean, I do have some good stuff coming up in May. I always just say check to see what I have coming up. Like one thing for sure is that there will be shows every day, 7 days a week. I don't take a day off, sometimes I do, but I mean, like I definitely upload something still,
Yeah.
I have this thing, like I have the fans who they're like the diehards. They look forward to the content every day. So I feel like I have to do it for them. Like I feel like I don't know.
Yeah, you can't let the fans down.
But you got to take care of yourself sometimes too.
You do.
Yeah,
you do.
You gotta get some sleep in there sometime.
And you can always plan some time off too. And people know. And when people appreciate the content that you're putting out, that they want you to stay healthy so that you can keep doing what you're doing. Everybody needs a little bit of off time to wind down and make sure that they're making it. So, all right, everyone. I appreciate everyone who was hanging out, and we're going to do our little false finish for the podcast portion. So everyone in Twitch and everyone's going to hang out for a little bit longer. But for everyone listening, over on Spotify, over on Apple Podcasts, over on all the places that you listen to the podcast at, and on YouTube. Take care, everyone, and we will see you all next time.